From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Remembering the fallen, we head to Idaho, where a small cemetery stands against the elements and time. Traveling the American countryside.
It's a great story because everyone knows the saying, the greatest thing since sliced bread. Nobody says that's the greatest thing since the iPhone or anything else.
For a history lesson that's not half-baked, as we honor service overseas.
I got injured in Afghanistan in 2010.
And here at home.
It's rewarding in so many ways once things start to happen.
On this Memorial Day edition of AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. On this Memorial Day, we honor our men and women who died serving our country. Many of them coming from rural America, answering the call to serve and sacrifice. But we also want to remember all of our veterans. And we begin this morning with the story of one U.S. Army vet whose brush with death while serving led him to take an entirely different career path, one that led him to the farm. This story shared with us by Linda Loveland and the North Carolina Farm Bureau.
When I got on the farm, I don't know, I felt, reinvigorated again. I felt like life, and I feel like there's a connection between, humans and soil. I think when you put your hands in the dirt, it changed me.
That change came at a time when Davon Goodwin needed it most.
I got injured in Afghanistan in 2010. My vehicle hit a roadside bomb, and I suffered a traumatic brain injury, and I broke my L1 and L2 in my lower back. Before the injury, I was in school studying biology and botany, wanted a PhD in botany, wanted to travel the world, and that was the goal. And when I got into the accident, when I woke up, things were different. I didn't want those things anymore. And I developed narcolepsy, from the head injury, and that's what kind of led me to not pursue graduate school. And I met two doctors who had about a 500-acre farm, and they were looking for a new farm manager, and I applied, and that was the start of farming.
Farming turned out to be an easy fit for Goodwin, thanks to his time in the Army.
Military service and agriculture, it goes hand in hand, because it's the same discipline, the same persistence, the same commitment to your community that a soldier has, that a farmer has as well.
His first ag job gave him a true feel for life on a farm.
So we had chickens, pigs, ducks, turkeys, grapes, hay, timber. It was a little bit of everything, and it got me to figure out, how do you manage land, and how do you, set your farm up. And the grapes they're already established on the property, so I got to learn how to, keep grapes going and establish new grapes and how to maintain a vineyard.
Goodwin used his knowledge to open his own produce business. OTL Farms is located off Highway 501 in Laurinburg. Right now, 3 acres are devoted to muscadine grapes. He hopes to eventually expand to 8 acres of pick your own.
We want to be able to make sure that this farm is open to the community as much as possible. We don't want people just to drive past it all the time but don't have access to it.
Community is important to Goodwin.
After the injury, I kind of felt like I wasn't serving anymore, because when I got injured, my Army career ended on somebody else's terms. And so kind of fulfilling that commitment is farming, to be able to give my community fresh fruits and vegetables and be able to serve them in a different manner.
Meanwhile, Goodwin has turned to his community to help ease his transition into farming.
They see me out here and look like I'm doing something wrong, somebody will stop over and say, well, you may want to do it this way. And so everybody, a lot of the older farmers that are in the community have been a great resource for knowledge. And I asked them a ton of questions.
Another thing that helped Goodwin, the Farmer Veteran Coalition.
And this organization I've been involved with for the last 5 years, it's amazing. It brings veterans together, and that camaraderie that you kind of lose when you leave the military and leave your service, you gain that through the coalition. They have a Homegrown by Heroes label that you can label your product with, so your consumers know that it's raised and it's done by a veteran. And they also have the fellowship fund that we were awarded a couple years ago that kind of helps you buy equipment and get into it.
The FVC recently announced a new chapter for North Carolina.
I think that would help a lot of other veterans get into farming because, number one, farming can be scary when you're first doing it, especially when you're not from a farming, family. You can find a veteran that's farming near you, and you can, go and kind of, get your feet wet in the farming. I'm excited about, what the coalition is going to be able to do here in North Carolina, and I think that since we're such a military-heavy state, I feel like, our membership will definitely grow. Probably, we hope for it to be the biggest chapter, in the country. And I think, we're grateful that, Farm Bureau is able to be there and assist us as we need to.
Our thanks to Linda Loveland and the North Carolina Farm Bureau for that story. Well, up next, one Navy veteran's never say die attitude. Why he's still working on the farm at 94 years young. Next. Morals, values, and never giving up. All attributes of our men and women of the military. But they can also be found on the farm. Ray D'Alessio, the Georgia Farm Monitor, brings us the story of a 94-year-old veteran who shows no signs of slowing down.
Bring up the subject of family and farming with Olin Hill, and more often than not, you'll get a smile as big as the moon. Bring up family and farming when Olin was a boy, you'll get that smile all right, but it may take him a while to collect himself.
That might be kind of hard. When I was a child coming up, we had to do everything with horses and by just handwork, We'd get up of a morning, harness the horses up, at daylight. Then we'd go on out and get cows and milk them, and then we'd go to the field.
Morals, values, and a work ethic that began on that Missouri farm nearly a century ago. A work ethic that Olin took with him to the Navy, where much of his time was spent working on a tugboat. Nowadays, despite the typical health ailments a person Olin's age experiences from time to time, there is pretty much nothing that will prevent Pop from working the farm and tending to the animals, even at the urging of his family, who admit they worry sometimes he does too much around the farm.
When I see him out there, I think, oh my gosh, I wish I could be, I hope I live as long as he does and am able to do what he does. And this past summer we used to raise hogs, and we've got out of that. So we had a hog shed that we decided that we would turn into an implement shed for the garden. So Andrew had the tractor pulling that round, and Pop was out there. So he didn't like the way it was, so we had to tear the whole thing down and rebuild it. And Pop was out there, Pop and me and Andrew when he could, but we were out there building the hog pen into the implement shed.
Obviously it's something that you have a passion about because you're out there all the time. What is it that just drives you to get out there, Pop? What is it about agriculture that you love so much?
You can do what you want to.
Mm-hmm.
You ain't got somebody standing over telling you what to do besides your dad.
Still got that in the back of your head, don't you? Being yelled at on the farm, huh?
Right.
It's been said, if a wise old man ever gives you advice while peeling an apple with a pocket knife and eating pieces right off the blade, you should probably take it. Pop is both the blade and the apple, and his one piece of advice is a good one.
Keep it up. Keep it up. Keep your knife and your apple. And if you use the knife right, it ain't gonna hurt you.
In Douglas County, I'm Ray D'Alessio.
All right, thanks Ray and the Georgia Farm Monitor for sharing that story. Up next, another veteran who answered the call to serve and then returned home with a new mission on the farm, one he says has some similarities to the military. And later, a field, a cemetery, and service remembered and honored this Memorial Day.
It's time to sign up for the 2022 United Pork Americas Conference in Orlando, Florida. Register today at unitedporkamericas.com and join us September 7th through the 9th.
The military and farming have things in common, of course. Just ask one homegrown hero. His story from the Arkansas Farm Bureau.
Basically, I was from this area. I didn't think about the military until it was time to do something with my life. So a recruiter came to my house and recruited me into the Navy. I never knew anything about the ocean or anything like that, but I went to San Diego for boot camp, learned about the Navy. I was a undesignated E1 nobody when I joined. My last ship was the USS Barry, DDG 52. I was a fire controlman first class when I left. I did 14 years in the military. I've been to many countries. When I got into the Navy, I met my wife. She said, well, you know, maybe if we retire, we should get some land or something there. So in case, you know, we want to retire. So we ended up buying this place. You know, it was a lot more than, you know, what I expected. But what we did is basically left it sitting here until I got out of the military. So it gave me the opportunity to come here, and we started building this house and started just building around. And then it was hard work, but I can see why no one likes farming, let's just say that. It's adversity after adversity. It's a lot of tragedy. Things happen all the time, but at the same time, it's rewarding in so many ways once things start to happen. It's kind of like life, or I would say the military, you know, all the things that you don't want to do, but you have to do because, you know, it's for a main purpose. So in the military, you never want to do any of the things you're told to do, but because that's your duty, you do it. So it was kind of like that with the farm. It's like no one wants to be out farming anymore. No one wants to do it because it's hard, it's dirty, there's always some kind of problem. You're on your own, you have to, you know, survive. The Homegrown by Heroes, it has helped tremendously because farmers appreciate one thing, that is veterans. I think one thing most Americans appreciate is your veterans. But Homegrown by Heroes, that is one that reached out to me. They have a lot of great programs. They have assistance for different things like that. They have people that are willing to help you. The connection between, in my mind, farming and military life is very similar. As I said, there's correlations with the way we think about life, the way we go about life, and a lot of things we don't want to do. Farming is one of those things that you have to immerse yourself in it first before you realize what the benefits are, what the opportunities are. The military was the same. When you went to boot camp, when you were placed at your first duty station, when you went on your first assignment, those were all scary things. You didn't want to do it. You didn't know what the outcome was. You didn't know what was going to happen. You didn't know if you were going to survive. Farming is almost the same way. By day, you never know if you're going to survive. But you go out and you do the mission. It's something that is, you know, ingrained in you that you're just going to keep going.
Our thanks to the Arkansas Farm Bureau for that report. Now, you've probably heard this said before, the best thing since sliced bread. But where does that come from? Andrew McCrae knows the answer. He shows us where it all began next as he travels the American countryside this Memorial Day. Now we can't forget that Memorial Day marks the unofficial start of the travel season. And as Andrew McCrae explains, for some folks, that's better than sliced bread. And for that story, we head to a small Missouri town.
Quagmire, we are on fire here. We are going to be the best thing since sliced bread.
That's the best thing since sliced bread.
He thought it was the greatest thing since sliced bread.
We've all heard the phrase, but where did it begin? It was an inventor named Otto Rohwedder who knew he could improve on the whole loaf of bread.
And he'd spent a number of years, I'd say 8 or 10 years, raising money, building a prototype of his idea, a factory and all that, and it burned to the ground. And he lost it all.
And if seeing his work lost in a fire wasn't enough, he soon received more bad news. His doctor told him he had a lung disease and would die within about a year. But Rohwedder didn't give up on his dream. Ignoring the advice of his doctor, he got back to work on the sliced bread machine. But he needed someone to partner with him, someone willing to try out the new contraption. He found that man in Chillicothe baker, Frank Bench.
Our bakery wasn't doing that well, and so he said, I'll take a chance.
Mr. Bench and Mr. Rohwedder, the baker and the inventor, were ready to bring the world something commonplace today.
July 7, 1928, we were the first bakery in the world to offer sliced bread to the public.
Sliced bread was born. The inventor, Rohwedder, didn't become rich, though, from his invention, but sales of sliced bread took off.
That turned out to be not so good a time for economics. In 1929, we had the crash, and Mr. Rohwedder actually had to sell his operation to what turned out to be Wonder Bread.
Soon, sliced bread became the standard that all families desired.
It's a great story because everyone knows the saying, the greatest thing since sliced bread. Nobody says that's the greatest thing since the iPhone or anything else.
It's not a new thing, sliced bread. It's been around.
But when did that phrase, the greatest thing since sliced bread, begin? No one knows for sure, but some point to the sacrifices made during World War II.
When they shut down bread bakeries that were slicing bread, housewives were so outraged that they rescinded that about 60 days later. And we think that's maybe when the saying, the greatest thing since sliced bread. I don't know that we really know exactly, who the first person to say that was.
Today you can come to the bakery building where it all began and see one of the earliest machines. Plus, this town hosts many events each year to coincide with its proclamation as the home of sliced bread.
So the next time you run into something that is wonderful and innovative and are tempted to say it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, well, it all started right here. Traveling the countryside in Chillicothe, Missouri, I'm Andrew McCrae.
Thanks, Andrew. Up next, if fields could talk. We head to a small piece of land in Idaho, now home to many heroes and history. Next. On this Memorial Day, many will honor our nation's fallen with a trip to military cemeteries. And one such cemetery is in the foothills of Boise, Idaho, quietly honoring many soldiers. But their sacrifice speaks volumes, as our friends at the Idaho Farm Bureau show us.
In the Boise foothills, a throwback to Boise's cavalry days, a forgotten cemetery. Outside the walls of the old fort, up the canyon, in the reserve, in the Boise foothills, the final resting place for soldiers. Only a handful lost in the Indian Wars. Most lost their lives to the flu, and there are a few family members buried here. The graves unwatered, the graves untended, soldiers and families mostly forgotten. If you visit Boise, come to the Reserve Cemetery. Listen to the wind blow. pray for the fallen.
Our thanks to Idaho Farm Bureau for sharing that story. And that's all of our time this morning. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Thanks for watching. Have a great day out in Farmville.